the 33-year-old that's still in the game, brave enough to say, I deserve to take up space, despite what anyone in the industry or anyone in Nashville or anyone in LA or whatever big shot manager or label head thinks that I cannot do what I'm doing. It doesn't matter because I know I can do what I'm doing. And I'm just going to keep at it. It's not over until I say it is. And I think that's just kind of been the theme of my whole life and my whole career, is just knowing that I am my end all be all. I feel like I'm a mirror, and I want to be putting music in this world that makes people feel seen, that makes people feel heard, that queer people can connect to, but also people on the other side of that can understand.
Hey, I'm Ben Earl, and this is Country Roads, the podcast where we get to know the biggest and brightest artists in country music through the places that have shaped them and made them who they are. And my guest today, Fancy Hagood, I mean, his story is just a great story about perseverance. I mean, if you've ever been made to feel like you need to change or tone yourself down to fit a relationship, or in Fancy's case, a whole industry, then this one is definitely for you. I think it's fair to say Nashville wasn't ready for Fancy Hagood when he first arrived as an openly queer artist who wanted to make country music. So his first step was pivoting to pop, and he actually had a top 40 hit performing with massive names like Ariana Grande and Meghan Trainor. But as you'll hear, it's really savage. That came at a massive personal cost to him. And it's kind of in healing from that whole experience that he's found his own sound now. I mean, he's literally created a whole genre, queer Southern pop, and he's been the sort of spearhead of this amazing community as well. And he's done it all as an independent artist. His latest album, American Spirit, is the album he says he dreamed of making when he first moved to Nashville. And 18 years later, it's just so heartwarming that it's bringing so much joy to so many people who do, but often don't hear their story in country music. It's quite enough from me, though. Let's hear his story in his own words. This is Fancy Hagood on Country Roads. I'm very excited to welcome to Country Roads someone I've spent a tiny bit of time with, but I'm actually a really big fan. They're coming in live from Nashville. Fancy Hagood, welcome to Country Roads. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. This is very exciting.
When I say I'm a fan, I'm going to talk about your songs a bit in the podcast, but you played Fly Away when you were over in London. I think it was the first time you ever played live, I think, was it? A few years ago?
Yeah, I actually had just written it. It wasn't even recorded or because I think that was at C2C in 2024. So yeah, I was in the middle of making my record, and I think Sean McConnell and I had just written that song. And in that setting, that CMA Songwriter Series, I wasn't in the round, but I came out to do one song, and it was kind of like a game time decision backstage with my manager, Natalie. I was like, I just feel like if I'm introducing myself to an audience, this would probably be the best way for them to kind of catch a piece of who I am.
I think I'd had a couple of beers at that point. It was a bit hazy. And it was just, you came out, and I don't know, there's some images in my head I can see. I just remember you came out. I knew a bit about you, but you told a very brief story about what the song was about and who you were, and you played the song. And I'm not just saying this; I genuinely had tears in my eyes. It was such a heartfelt story, and you really owned that moment. And I've been such a fan ever since. I'm so excited you're here. Thank you so much. Before we get going, are you at home right now? Is that where you are?
I am, yeah.
Because I've seen your videos. You're what we call, is it a maximalist? Would you say you're a collector of things?
Yeah, from where my computer's sitting, you would not know that, but any other direction, it's kind of yeah, I don't have a ton of wall space left in this house.
Because I saw a video of you saying you collect clocks. There was
I do.
Bird houses. What else is there?
Correct.
Nutcrackers? Was that one of them?
Oh yeah, I do collect nutcrackers, which is probably the most eccentric thing I collect and the thing people are most weirded out by, but these things, I don't know how this happens. I don't know if it's an OCD of mine, but once I have one thing that I love, I'm I must have others of this, and it just goes. Last time I was on tour, when I was on tour with CMAT in the UK, I found this shop in Brighton that had these fantastic brooches, and I was like, I need all of these. And now I'm like looking in my room and I can see I have like a collection of like over 50 brooches now, and that was just last November and December. So,
Is it a problem,
but
do you think, yet?
I
Or
basically collect everything.
just quick before we get started, also, you're like you said, you were touring with CMAT in Europe. I mean, that's got to be an amazing. I mean, it's a perfect audience, I think, for you. But like, what was that like? Because she is just blown up here, and
Yeah.
I love her kind of energy. What was it like touring with her?
I mean, honestly, it was a fever dream. I was watching the Graham Norton. Actually, I was just on Instagram and I was scrolling and saw a performance that Graham Norton had posted, and it was CMAT, and I didn't know who she was at the time, but her performance was so visceral, and like the way she was giving what she was giving on stage, I was just absolutely gagged, and I went to follow her, and she was already following me,
Oh, wow.
and yeah, I was kind of like out of body about that. But then, that was a couple years ago. And then I met her in Nashville at Americana Fest. She came to my showcase at Americana Fest. And, a year later asked me if I would go on tour with her. And yeah, it's like, it's one of those things like I'm an independent queer country artist, and opportunity for artists like me are not rampant. I feel like moments like that are just, they come at the most perfect time of like when you feel, okay, well, what am I going to do next? Or how am I going to get through this season? Or something like that happens. And I just feel like it's a total God wink of like, you're on the right path, you're doing the right thing, hang in there, stay in the game. Because CMAT is an absolute legend. Like watching her every night on stage and her band, it's just, it's otherworldly. And to know that someone like that tips their hat to me and would give me that experience, it's just really, really validating.
What do you take with you when you tour? If you're like a lover of collecting things, are you quite good at packing small? Or are you taking loads of stuff on that tour?
No, no, I'm horrible at packing small, and especially over in England. I'm like, y'all's relationship with air conditioning is so interesting, and I'm like, when I'm inside, I'm hot. When I'm outside, I'm cold. So I have to take basically two wardrobes because I am basically never comfortable. Because here, like it's a little cooler outside right now for to be spring, but my air conditioning's on all year round because I just like to be cool. So mainly I just pack a lot of clothes when I'm over there. I don't pack any of my like tchotchkes or trinkets or stuff like that. And that's because I'm over there buying more. So that's what I do with my off time is I just go around to like antique shops and vintage stores and little trinket shops and I buy stuff. That's how I keep myself occupied when I'm on the road. So I don't take a lot with me, but I do bring a lot
Is
back.
there like one thing that you always take? Is there something that's really special to you that keeps you grounded? Because a lot of people have that. They have that one thing they always bring that's like, yeah, I'm still me kind of thing.
No, I don't think I'm very grounded. I don't I don't know that. I wish that was a way people describe me on tour as grounded. That's no. I don't really have anything. I probably just trying to keep up with my shows in the States. I'm a Real Housewife fanatic, so that's probably what keeps me the most grounded, which probably makes me sound the most insane.
That's great. That's great. I'm not. I'll be honest. I'm not a fan of Real Housewives, but if that makes you feel grounded and at home, that's great.
Listen, it takes all kinds.
Yeah. Let's get into your story then. So, Bentonville, Arkansas. I mean, this podcast is all about the places that have made us who we are. I mean, that looks, apart from being the home kind of a Walmart in a way, where it all started for Walmart, the actual like visual, it looks incredible. It looks like a sort of like a picture postcard of a small town in the South America. Is that how you describe it? What was it like growing up there?
So it's interesting because Bentonville has gone through so many changes as I have since I left. Now Bentonville is like known for art and all sorts. Like they have a movie festival, they have music festivals. Like there's been a lot of money from the Walmart family put back into Bentonville, and it looks very different than it did when I grew up there. When I grew up there, it was just kind of like you said, just small town America. It was just kind of normal, I would say. Where now it's like really, really. There's a lot of there's an art museum there called Crystal Bridges now, which is like a huge American art museum, and it's beautiful, and they have the most elaborate art there. I've been a couple times, and it's just really, really gorgeous, and that has changed the town. So I didn't grow up in that version of Bentonville. I grew up in a very tame, calm, normal, average American small town. Yeah.
But what was it like growing up for you in terms of your household though? So what was music a part of your life early on? Who was in your house? How did you get into music?
Yeah, so I grew up with my mom and dad and my two older sisters, Valerie and Natasha, and I've always been in music somehow or the other because I grew up in church, and so music was a big part of that. So I grew up singing in church. My mom sang in church and all of that. My sisters and I were in a trio when I was younger called the Hagood trio,
I
and
love
we would
that.
sing and do three-part harmony. But I was the Beyonce. I had to break away. I had to do my own thing. So, but yeah, music's always just been very much a part of my life. And then when I was in junior high is when I kind of started writing my own songs. And I had a teacher. She was actually just a substitute teacher, but I was supposed to be reading something I wrote in class, and I kind of got bullied a lot in school. I've always been as eccentric as I am now, and I think now when you're an adult, being eccentric kind of makes you a little cool. Where when you're a kid, I think just being just like everyone else is what makes you cool. So I always kind of stood out, and then this teacher was like, "Well, if you're not going to read it, why don't you write? You sing. Why don't you write a song and sing it to us?" And I don't know why I thought that would make me cooler, but it's just what I felt the most comfortable doing. I have like a musical theater background. That's what I did in school, and I was in choir. So she encouraged me to write something, and it really just kind of tapped on a part of me I had never explored, and I felt very, very into that. And so that I've been writing songs ever since. So yeah, music's just kind of been very much a part of my identity.
So you sang it in front of the whole class, this thing.
Yeah,
How old were you?
I was like in ninth grade, so I was probably like 14,
Oh gosh, wow.
13, 14. Well, it's funny looking back because like it was like cringe, you know what I mean? Like everyone else in the class is like, what is happening? Why is he doing this? But it did like awaken something in me, which is like really all that matters because it like shaped what I do with my life now. And I'm a songwriter. I love my artistry is built on my songwriting. I love writing songs for other people and collaborating. So, um, yeah, having a teacher encourage me to start writing in that way because I wasn't comfortable just getting up and speaking. I think that was really, really formative for me.
It's amazing. I mean, to have the confidence, if you weren't confident speaking, but to get up and to sing like that at that age, if you're already feeling like an outsider, and also you said you sort of being bullied as well, whenever that
Yeah.
came in. I mean, I think that's just amazing. I don't know why. In the movie, in the biopic, I can kind of see that as like a big moment. I think that's so cool. I love that. You're very close to is it, I don't know how to pronounce it, Mormor.
My mama, yeah, me and my mama were very, very close.
We
Yes.
say grandma here. I've seen a beautiful video, which we'll get into a bit later, to your song "Good Grief" that you put on Instagram, which is amazing. But I know she's no longer with us. But what was it like? How much of an inspiration was she for you, sort of growing up?
Oh man, my mama was like everything. My grandfather, her husband, had a stroke probably like a year after I was born and needed a lot of care and help. And so they moved in with my family. And so my mama was kind of like, she kind of helped raise me. And just never in my life will I just forget the nurturing and care and unconditional love I received from my mama always. There was never a wavering moment. Like I know I could have called her and been like, you know, I killed somebody, and she'd be like, okay, well they probably deserved it. Let's figure this out. Like she's just a champion, and there were so many moments in my life that she got to see and be a part of, and I'm so proud of that. Like when I was on the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, my mom was with me and stuff like that. I just feel really blessed that I had that unconditional love in my life. She was my everything.
It sounds like you had a really supportive, upbringing, family. Lot of females as well. It sounds like a really female
Oh
kind
yeah.
of similar to my upbringing, actually. I've got to ask you just also about the music because you mentioned about musical theatre. Then, like, what were you listening to around that sort of age? You obviously had the church music, but what would you sort of put on just to sort of vibe to? Vibe to? You know what I mean? What were you listening to?
What were you vibing to? I was vibing to, it's true. I was listening to a lot of like conservative Christian music growing up because that's just what I knew. When I got into junior high, there was a choir teacher who introduced me to Nickel Creek.
Oh, wow, gosh, they are amazing. They're not very well known here, you know.
It's a shame because it's my favorite band of all time. I'm like borderline creepy about it. I can't help it. It's like, the way music can just kind of like transport you. When I'm listening to Nickel Creek now, I am that seventh, eighth grader, in Arkansas. And I remember like learning how to drive, like mostly what was playing in the background was Nickel Creek. And so it's just, that was like my favorite music. And, I loved it because my choir teacher loved it and I was obsessed with him. So it just kind of became like something I was just very, very into. Me and my friends would like be trying to learn how to play Nickel Creek songs, which back then I only played piano. So trying to figure out how to play all those like mandolin parts on a piano is like so funny. But I had a friend named Chaz who would like, play Doubting Thomas and I would just be like singing my heart out. But yeah, Nickel Creek was like really, really, really something I loved. But I had like a vast, like my sister Valerie was really into country music. So I was listening to like the Chicks with her, and my other sister Natasha was like more into like hip hop and dance music. So when I was with her and she was driving me around, we are listening to like Missy Elliott and stuff like that. So, oh, another band I was obsessed with was Little Big Town. Still am. I just think they're the coolest and they're the nicest people. And yeah, Boondocks was like, that was my jam for
It's
sure.
funny that because I didn't know the Nickel Creek thing, and your new EP, I can really hear that because the instrumentation Nickel Creek is kind of double. It's bass, isn't it? Mandolin and violin, is that right? Oh no, guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can sort of hear that really acoustic sound in your newer stuff, which is really
Yeah.
interesting to me. I didn't know that. What were some of your early performances apart from that one at the school? When did you start really doing your own songs? Did you start playing quite young in your teenage years? Or?
Yeah. By the time I was in high school, I had started, writing a lot and had like a little band that would play with me. And my first show ever was at like a church in Bentonville, which was like very funny thinking about that because the music I was writing back then was so like angsty and you know what you can imagine is so cringe like thinking about, but
Was like no one understands me kind of stuff? That kind of.
totally that like I think I remember one of the I recorded like an EP back then and it was called Far Away and the whole thing was just like I'm so far away from everyone else like even though I'm right here and it's like so emo and like
It's great. That's actually really good, though. It's really cool, though. My songwriter brain just went off. That's really good.
I'm like sitting here thinking like I wonder who has access to those recordings because I have not heard it in forever. I would be so intrigued to hear that again, honestly. And then I would play like at coffee shops, basically anywhere people would let me. But yeah, in Bentonville, I moved away from Bentonville when I was 17. I dropped out of high school and moved to Nashville. So a lot of my formative music years were in Nashville, thank God, because you kind of just learn more here and there's more to kind of sink your teeth into as far as like songwriting and performances and opportunity. So yeah, by the time I was the end of my sophomore year, I dropped out of high school, ended up in Nashville. So
Let's get into that because I'm so fascinated about. Well, actually, before that, actually, I'd like to ask. Actually, you describe yourself as a queer country artist. When obviously the church was very big in your life, what was coming out for you? If you don't mind me asking, big question to jump into. I apologize, but did you do that before you moved to Nashville? Coming out to your family,
no,
or
so I moved to Nashville. I was 17, and I think I came out to my parents when I was 19. So a couple years of living in a bigger city and just kind of getting to know other people and being around diversity for the first time in my life. And I also went to a Bible college for a couple semesters and I studied religion. So I was learning a lot about what I knew when I came out of the closet I would be met with. And so I just kind of, when I came out of the closet, I just knew it took me a long time to come to terms with that. And it's going to take my family a little bit of time to come to terms with it too. I just wanted to accept whatever happens and I'm going to love my family regardless and hopefully help them through it and teach them through it. And yeah, it was a complicated like maybe year, but after that my parents are just super supportive and lovely and I think my mama was a big part of that. She's always been so unconditional and accepting of anyone and everyone. So I think my family's always had an example of that. And my parents, it was very easy for them to say, "We love you. We're choosing you." And there's nothing you could do to make us not love you, which I know is not everyone else's experience. So I'm pretty fortunate and really lucky. Not to say there wasn't like hard conversations and tough, just kind of getting through those initial conversations was a little tough, but I moved home for a little bit from Nashville through like a November and December just to kind of show my family like I'm still me. I'm just maybe a little happier and a little
Wow. Yeah.
like a little more open, and but I am who you raised. Like I am the same person. Like I said earlier, like I've always been this way. Like how I am now is how I was back then. So it was kind of just a learning curve, and I think in the queer community, we crave acceptance. We want to be accepted, not tolerated, and so I kind of feel like it's important for me in those spaces, and I learned this with my family. I need to be accepting and not tolerant because it's going to take people time to understand, stuff that they don't understand.
Yeah, it goes both ways, doesn't it? You have to accept
It
exactly. You can't.
should.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Was there a sense of freedom then when you get to Nashville? Because I guess you would be nervous going to the big city, also excited. But I mean, I love Nashville. I spent a lot of time there. But when you would have come out, would have been quite a while back. It would have been 15 years ago. Yeah, it was a different town, and there is that openness to it. But did you just find your people immediately? Is that why you felt so confident there?
No,
Okay.
no. I think Nashville is an open place, and I feel really accepted here. But that's not to say that I think that it's a perfect place or that there's not room for a lot of growth and change. And I definitely think Music Row and country music needs to continue to diversify and share stories of people from all walks of life. And I think it's still really complicated and hard. But I came out of the closet because I started working at Forever 21, which is actually where I got my name Fancy, from coworkers.
What happened? How did that come about? Why were you called Fancy?
Well, some people come out of the closet. I always jokingly say I burst out of it on a unicorn. And I just had like, if I was not expressing myself before I came out, like expression was like everything to me when I came out. So I dyed my hair platinum blonde. I had full face makeup on every day. My nails were a different color. And the Drake song Fancy was popular. Oh, you fancy, huh? Hair's done, nails done, everything's did. And so I had a coworker that just started calling me Fancy. And it was the first time where I felt like people were kind of poking fun at me, but it actually made me feel seen and loved and accepted. And even though it was like through a joking kind of way, and I started performing as Fancy at these shows, and it just kind of took off. My first show ever as Fancy sold out, and it was kind of just like a wild night. And it just, the second I stepped into that Fancy thing, I very much felt like myself. But I do credit coming out of the closet and feeling more brave to be myself to those people I worked with at Forever 21 because it was such an accepting, caring place. It was one of the first times I'd ever been around openly queer people. Where I went to school, there was obviously a lot of queer people, me being one of them, but it wasn't something you could really just openly talk about. It was so taboo and stressful. So being at Forever 21, where there was just a lot of queer people who were just being themselves and living their life so openly, it really emboldened me to do the same thing. And yeah, it was just like freedom. And that's what Fancy represents to me, is just freedom to be myself. I became Fancy because I had lived a life where I had to play by other people's rules my whole entire life. And when I became Fancy, it kind of felt like no one could tell me what that was or what that meant. And that's still what it is today. And my musical journey has been interesting because it's been people recognizing my talent, but not understanding that they can't really tell me what's what or who I am or what I do. So I've been picked up and dropped a whole lot of times because I just remain really faithful to the fact that no one can tell me who I am or what I should be doing or how I should be doing it. That has to come directly from me and from my heart. And if something doesn't feel right, I can't do it. It's like I really have a commitment to myself to be aligned and to do things my way.
No, I was going to say, but how was it making friends with like musicians and artists and the industry side? Because if you're that loud and that, expressive, I mean, Nashville, there's a, especially the industry side, Music Row side, there's a lot of sort of cool, manly, macho stuff going on. And
Yeah, you have to remember this was like 2012 and 2013 by the time I started really appearing in like Music Row and doing stuff for real, for real. And I think people were just intrigued. I think it had never happened before. I think people were like, "What is this?" And I was just no one could tell me shit. I was just very, very headstrong on what I wanted and how I wanted to do it. And yeah, I had a lot of buzz. Like I said, my first show sold out, and I wasn't doing full country music, but I was doing a little bit of that, and then I was like doing other things like rap and all this other crazy stuff. Like I was just throwing everything at the wall, and so I think people were just more intrigued than anything. I ended up getting my first publishing deal with Big Machine, and so that kind of jump started a lot of stuff for me.
was that, I mean, Big Machine are famously a really progressive label, but you had to have a lot of rejection before that. Is that right? People saying you just won't work out as an artist here.
Anytime I took a meeting, I was kind of met with. I can only think of like two places that were like, "You're really talented. We don't know what we're gonna do with you, but we want to figure it out." The rest of it was like, mm, I don't really know how this works here. I mean, I had someone straight up look me in the face and say, "Someone like you is not gonna work somewhere like Nashville," which I'm like, that's so bold because 13 years later, I was signed to that exact publishing company where that person still worked.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm like, people, but it's that same thing. It's just people don't know what they don't know. And I'm really proud of the fact that I was who I was on Music Row. And because, now when you look around, and I'm not the only one, there was a ton of queer people just like beating down doors and taking up space. But the fact that I was part of that is something I'm very proud of because now when you look around Nashville, there's a lot of queer artists taking up space and using their voice to speak for a community that has often been ignored by country music. So I think it's really cool, and I'm really grateful that I was in Nashville when I got here because I feel like I was a part of a lot of change, and I feel like because of my presence and what I represent, there's a lot more people able to do it now too.
And I spoke about it at the start as well. And would you say your song "Fly Away" is that period of your life? Because that's why I felt so emotional. I got goosebumps actually, genuinely. Like I remember when you played it, and everything you just said is just reinforced and made me remember that moment of when you told that story. Because I haven't had to have the same battles you've had. Not being queer myself, but it's like I just can't imagine someone staring me in the eye and saying that. That just it pisses me off. I'm honest. It makes me really angry that someone say to you, "You're never going to work here." And having writing a song like that, do you feel like you were telling your younger self, "Stick at it," even though you sound like you were very headstrong, but you knew. But there must have been some dark days. There must have been.
Yeah, well, I think when you're young, you're a little delusional, and I think that's not it wasn't just me. I think everyone's kind of that way when they're young. You can do anything you set your mind to. Where, kind of when I started getting signed and, I moved to LA and all this other stuff, like that's where I kind of really got the shit kicked out of me. And that song Fly Away is, it talks about all of these versions of myself. The 17-year-old that was brave enough to leave home, and the 22-year-old that was defiant and knocked down doors and started having all of his dreams come true, and the 25-year-old who got dropped from every single contract he had ever had. And now the when I wrote Fly Away, I was 33. So the 33-year-old that's still in the game, brave enough to say I deserve to take up space, despite what anyone in the industry or anyone in Nashville or anyone in LA or whatever big shot manager or label head thinks that I cannot do what I'm doing. It doesn't matter because I know I can do what I'm doing. And I'm just going to keep at it. It's not over until I say it is. And I think that's just kind of been the theme of my whole life and my whole career is just knowing that I am my end all be all. No one else. Scooter Braun, not my end all be all. Republic Records, not my end all be all. Big Machine, not my end all be all. And, I have my opinions and my what I went through and things that I take personally, but people are out here just trying to make commerce, and when you mix art with commerce, there's a lot of room for devastation. And I just know that my ability is anointed, and I know that sounds like churchy or whatever, and I'm not religious at all anymore, but I do know that my voice and what has been put in me is bigger than myself. It's bigger than just I want to be famous. I feel like I'm a mirror, and I want to be putting music in this world that makes people feel seen, that makes people feel heard, that queer people can connect to, but also people on the other side of that can understand.
I think you're definitely doing that, Matt. I mean, 100%. Everything you just said. I mean, I love your music so much. I am fascinated about your journey to LA. So you signed this deal with Big Machine because the first time I heard you was when you were Who Is Fancy. This whole era, and it was massive. I mean, I know I've heard you describe it as it was sort of framed as a failure, inverted commas, because it didn't go top one or top two. But you broke into the top 40 with your first single. You've got two
Yeah.
massive artists, Ariana Grande and Megan Trainor, on it. This is 2015, the whole Who Is Fancy campaign. Can you just summarize? I mean, there's so much to unpack there, but like, what was that? Like, you go to LA, and then how did that sort of start?
So I signed to Big Machine. Big Machine put me into a joint venture with Dr. Luke's company called Prescription. And my point person at Prescription in LA, her name was Katie Fagan, and she's fabulous and amazing. And she actually lives in Nashville now. But she was someone who really just rode so hard for me and believed in me, and in the way that, like, a Dr. Luke or other higher ups at these companies I worked for would say, "You're not really an artist. We think you should be focusing on songwriting." That was never my ambition. I love songwriting, but especially back then, I'm like, I'm an artist. Like, how dare you? Was kind of like my attitude. And Katie got me a showcase at Hotel Cafe in LA. I played the showcase, and the next day we got a phone call from SB Project, Scooter Braun's company. We met with them, and then the day after that, I met Scooter, and he basically offered me a record deal on the spot,
Wow.
and a management deal. And my then team like went into like a spiral because they didn't want me to work with him. So then all of a sudden I'm like meeting every manager under the sun, people trying to get me. And I eventually, after like 6 months, I went back to Scooter and was like let's do this. And yeah, it was kind of like off to the races there. I already had my song Goodbye, which I had made in Nashville with Steph Jones, who famously has written so many big songs now, and Jesse Frazier, who's a huge Nashville songwriter and producer now. We wrote Goodbye all together, and that's Jesse's like day of demo production. And it, like, yeah, it went to top 40. And like, you're talking to someone who worked at Forever 21 like a year and a half, 2 years before this. So
And just to clarify, this is very pop as well. The sound of this is pop. This isn't country at all. Just to
well,
put
yeah,
this,
everyone
yeah.
had kind of made it apparent that like someone like me wouldn't really work at country radio, so I needed to do a pop thing. But if you break Goodbye down, if you take away that production, the song itself is like very spaghetti western melodically. Like, there's a lot of southern influence in it. Even my next single, Boys Like You, which featured Megan Trainor and Ariana Grande, which you brought up, I wrote that with Bob DiPiero, who is a Hall of
Yeah.
Fame songwriter in Nashville, and Jason Gant, who's another amazing songwriter in Nashville.
I've
And
worked with Bob. When I saw his name in the credits, I was like so shocked. But like you say,
yeah,
it's a country song, isn't it? In terms of its sort of sensibility, it's just got a pop kind
yeah.
of production.
Well, this is my gripe about a lot of things. Everyone puts so much, and this is kind of like an American thing, and we'll get to why I started making my record, my first album in England. And it's because genre was just not thrown in my face the way it's just constantly discussed here in America. I mean, I hate the conversation because I think a song is a song is a song is a song, and the way you dress it is what makes it fit where it ends up in the world. On my new EP, I just covered the Spice Girls, and it sounds very bluegrass. Does that make the Spice Girls bluegrass? When they wrote that song, do you think that they were like, oh, this would fit in a bluegrass area? No. And that's kind of like the same with like anything I write. I feel like the way I produce it is what kind of decides what genre it belongs in and where it can fit. So my pop era although it was like my first entry into releasing music and all of that, it still was very Southern Nashville coded. And people don't really know that. But people also didn't really know me at all because I was kept a mystery. It was like everything was done behind the scenes. I didn't, my song was a top 40 hit before people even knew it was me singing it.
Yeah, wow.
So it was kind of a wild time. It was a very shameful time. It was a very confusing time. Being plucked from the community you know and love, and like put in a different city in LA is a lot of things. And I would say it's a lonely place because it's so hard. Even if you find community, and don't get me wrong, there's so many people in LA that I treasure and I adore and I love. But it is hard to foster community, which in Nashville, that's like I can see like my closest 10 friends in 10 minutes if I want to. It's like, it's very easy to get around. It's very easy to see people. Community is very easy to foster here.
LA, the competition, it's so in your face. It's just, I've never gelled in LA. It's never been a thing for me. When you say shameful, so I'm really fascinated. Sorry to take you back just a couple of sentences, but there's a kind of horrible irony, isn't there, or is there, that your first record is Who Is Fancy? When as you've found yourself, it sounds like at this point you've gone to Nashville, you've said this is who I am, and then you've been plucked, like you said. You go to LA, and then the first thing is like, let's just make this person a mystery. Let's not celebrate. Is that fair enough or not?
Oh, it's fair. I mean, I didn't even know that that's what I was being called, Who Is Fancy, until I heard it on the radio, and I was being described as Who Is Fancy. And then I was like gaslit into thinking that that would just be what it's called while I'm a mystery. And then when I'm revealed, that it will all go to Fancy Hagood. And then I did the Jimmy Fallon thing, and I'll never forget. I was in like a kind of like a Sprinter van type thing with my team doing a press day in New York. And I was like so excited to change my socials over to Fancy Hagood. And my product manager from the label looked at me and was like, "We can't change that. Like, what are you talking about?" And it was just like, it was devastating. And, not only to like hide me and to like make me a mystery, which I get is like a marketing campaign and it worked, but what it did to my psyche, like telling me that like your music's good enough, but who you are isn't. It's a little messed up, and you're like in your early 20s, and that stuff is so formative. And not for nothing, like Sam Smith was out at the time doing his thing and killing it, but like at this moment in time, they were still quite ambiguous. So me having songs about men and singing directly about my experience and the queer experience, like it was a big deal. And in my opinion, the ball got dropped and people mishandled that opportunity. But what I will say is, looking back on it with hindsight, which is 2020, I'm so grateful at the way it did not pan out for me, because that was not my tribe. That was not my people. It was not the time for me to find the success that I crave. And as much as I, understood a lot about who I wanted to be, I don't know that I had found myself. I don't know that I had found my voice. I explained that era of my life as, the difference between hunger and thirst. I was thirsty back then. I would have done anything to get ahead. I would have changed myself in any way to make other people happy. And that's not who I am today. And that's not who I am right now. And, was that on a bigger scale, that music? Yes. But what I do now and what I put out and what I get to experience in my life is so much sweeter and so much better than anything back then, because back then was miserable. I was miserable. You're having all these bucket list moments happen and you're unhappy. It's like, how can you explain that?
There is a sweet end to this story, like you say, because you come back to Nashville. You leave. Did you stop all the stuff with the record deal? Were you just like, I'm not doing this? Or
So I got dropped.
okay. So yeah,
I got dropped in one fell swoop, which is, I say this at all my shows, like not to brag, but I've been dropped from every professional contract I've ever entered into.
But was it a relief? Was it relief for you when you got dropped?
It was a lot of things. It's kind of like when a breakup happens, right? It's like, even if it's a relationship you want to be out of, it's scary to walk away. It's scary to step towards the unknown. And, not for nothing, I was surrounded by big powerhouse names. all the who's who of the music industry in Hollywood, and they do a really great job at making you feel like you won't be able to do it without them. But I will say they did me right at the end in the sense that it was no strings attached. Like I was in and out of that deal in like a year and a half, and it wasn't like they did right by me in the end. And so
Yeah.
that's why, when I look back, it was a confusing time. I do think everyone was well intentioned. I think the intentions going into the making of Who Is Fancy and all of that, I think the intentions were pure. I don't think there was any like sinister, crazy, like we're gonna get him type thing.
Hmm.
Which, back then in LA, I was in my Diet Pill era, so back then I felt very differently about that. So it just is what it is. But my dream when I moved to Nashville was to be a country artist. So I think that all of it was just a big, beautiful distraction to teach me that I don't ever need to listen to nobody that is not me.
So you moved back to Nashville, and
Yep, and start working at a bar.
that must have been crazy going from like there's those names, Scooter Braun, Dr. Luke, all these are big, big names in pop music and music. And then here working at a bar in Nashville. But you're like you say, you're a pioneer. I mean, I, I don't think it's too much to say you basically I know you don't like genres you said, but you've kind of coined the queer southern pop genre in a way. Would you say that's kind of like your thing that you sort of started? Do you think?
I don't know anyone else who was doing it before me. It's always like hard to be like I was the first or I did this because there's so much queerness that just isn't open. Does that make sense? Like people aren't open. So I'm sure there's been artists doing what I'm doing, but just aren't like open about their story or their narrative or like what they're truly writing about. But yeah, the queer Southern pop thing, definitely. When I started making Southern Curiosity, I had gotten signed to my friend Natalie Osborne, who is now my manager. She worked for a publishing company, and her boss, Steve Markland, who I'm actually signing to for a second time
Oh, nice.
currently,
Wow.
they single handedly helped me make that record. And it was my first album. I had never made a body of work. They were sending me to London to write a lot, and I was writing with Naughty Boy in London on some pop stuff, and then one of his writers named Shaq had this beat, and it was called Country Boy, or maybe it was called Country Girl. I don't know, but it was that riff of Don't Blink,
Oh
and it
gosh, that
had this
song.
like it had this kind of like trap beat behind it. Well, I took the beat out and I wrote Don't Blink on top of that, just that riff. And when I brought that back to Nashville, it was like this is one of like my like favorite moments because it was like the first time where me and my team were all so on the same page that it was like this is your sound, this we can build on this. And so having that song Don't Blink, I just started, I went back to London and wrote a bunch, and I was writing in Nashville a bunch and had a direction for the first time. All of that was kind of like it just kind of like it took me about 2 years to make, and John Green and Topher Brown produced that album,
Two of
and
my
they're
favorite
both
people in the world as well. I
they're
love them
wonderful.
so
They're
much.
wonderful, 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 and just talented as you can be. And they both just had all the patience in the world for me. And we made that record over a span of 2 years. Like anytime John Green was in Nashville, or we could get time, and I could convince Steve to pay for like four more songs here, four more songs there. We ended up cutting. We cut around like 20 songs for that record, and we ended up putting 11 out. But it was just like the most magical time because I was being treated like an artist for the first time in my entire life. I wasn't being treated like a product. I wasn't being treated like a songwriter. I was being treated like an artist. And I feel like it shaped so much of who I am now as an artist and what I do. And I'll never forget that feeling of like having Natalie and Steve in my corner, like true champions with no agenda or intention other than just helping me facilitate my vision. It was like a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful era of my life, and like getting that music into the world. We had it scheduled to come out in March of 2020, and I was hit by a tornado
Oh my
on
gosh!
March 3rd.
Wow.
So we had to push it back, and then by the time we pushed it back, we had been put in a global lockdown. So timing was just like horrible. But we started putting the music out in July 2020, and it just felt, even though we are like locked down and the world was crazy and it was so weird, I just felt so proud of myself and so grateful for the people I had around me. And that's how I feel now. Anytime I get to put music out, like looking around at the teams of people around me that work so diligently, now with this last EP release, Baby Jake, I'm looking around at my team and it is predominantly female, predominantly queer. I'm really lucky. And I just am like, the journey's been so tumultuous, as you can tell. Like, it's just like, it's been insane, but my spirit remains, and it's just so intact because of and I know it's because of the people that I get to work with and the people that believe in me and believe in my vision and my artistry. I feel like the luckiest. I I just want to be putting out what is most me. And I feel like where I'm at with my life and my career is like I don't want bells and whistles. I want the bare minimum, and I want it to be about my voice and my song and the words and the way that can make people feel.
I genuinely feel like you're doing that with your music right now, though. It
I
feels.
appreciate
I'm
that.
so genuinely so happy for you. You had me in tears earlier with "Good Grief," the little clip on your Instagram, because your great friendship with Leslie Jordan. Your
Hmm.
mama was in that video as well. I mean, I might break down now. It was. It's really hard, I think, as a songwriter to especially on social media, to really show people what the song. I've always felt the song should be showing what the thing is, but Instagram, TikTok is such a visual medium, isn't it, that you need that kind of video to show it. And I feel like that little clip, it starts with Leslie in the car, talking about your Opry, you're going to be playing the Opry. It ends with your mama talking about being your Valentine, and it broke my heart. I mean, I don't. There's no question really. I just want to urge everyone to go onto your Instagram and watch that Good Grief. I mean, it's so joyful, but you're talking about something so sad and heavy. I mean, is that a big song for you, Good Grief? Is it a big one for you?
It's interesting. It's a hard one for me, because of just the nature of what it was written about. And it's funny because I wrote that with the producer, Jeremy, in Nashville. And we had kind of known of each other for a while, but we hadn't spent a lot of creative time together. And we had gotten together and we're working on a song. And like when a song, it's not coming together. It just doesn't feel easy.
I definitely know that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like the worst feeling in the world. And so I'm kind of like, I was like this close to being like, let's call it. I'm I need I need a nice coffee. I need to go get lunch. But he turned around and he was just like, you could just tell he was like upset, and he was like, "Hey, I'm sorry. Like I'm kind of going through a lot. Like our cat died last night, and I had to walk like my children through grief for the first time." And he started talking about that, and it just like landed on me in a way that I'm not like especially like in a room with like another dude. Like I'm not super emotional, but we just started talking about that, and I was in tears. I was just so moved by him being a father and having to walk his kids through losing their pet and how hard that is. Like even as like an adult, that is something you just kind of don't understand, like the grief and loss and all of that. It's like so hard to handle. And we ended up writing Good Grief that day, and it couldn't have been more than 20 minutes we
Oh
spent
wow.
writing that song, and it just felt like we were catching the tiger by its tail. And that song needed to be in the world, and it needed to be heard, even if it was just for me and him and the grief we were both dealing with separately. Because I realized he said something. He said grief triggers other grief, and that hit me so hard because talking about their pet cat that I had literally never even met, I was just in shambles, and I was realizing that what I was experiencing was my own undealt with grief, with the loss of Leslie, with the loss of my grandmother. When we lost my grandmother, I had been through so much, like the tornado, the pandemic. I was kind of like stoic, and as sad as it is to lose someone, it's like, that year had kind of made me a shell of myself a bit. I wasn't properly expressing or feeling the things that I was feeling, and I realized in that moment when we wrote Good Grief that the grief he was talking about was actually triggering my own grief. And so that's what that song's about. And it is important. I literally have a tattoo of that song on my leg because I don't even perform that song out that much because it is just kind of a tough one for me. But it's an important one for me. And I'm really grateful that that song found me and Jeremy that day.
It's so fascinating because I don't know what grief I'm dealing with. It definitely triggered something in me today. I'm genuinely tearing up. You're talking about it. It's Fancy, if it's okay, I just want to finish some quick fire questions. I promise I'll let you go.
Let's
But
do it.
thank you so much. Your story is just, you've been so open, and I'm sure loads of people listening will be really inspired by your story genuinely, because it's an amazing story. And you're obviously only, a third in, hopefully. You've got a long way to
Let's
go, but
hope.
at the start. Yeah. So we ask everyone these quick fire questions. Just if you can, keep it quite brief. The place you like to escape to when you need to reset, where do you go?
Oh,
Antique store?
yeah. I was about to say, honestly, I think that's what I'm doing when I'm buying all my trinkets is disassociating. So you're probably dead on with the antique store.
I love that. Do you know they're my least favorite places in the world, antique stores? I hate them. Sorry.
Wow, you and I have nothing in common. You
We have
hate the Real
nothing in common.
Housewives and antique stores.
Yeah, that's very true. Also, garden centers. You have those where you buy plants and stuff. My mum used to drag me around them. I get like a general, my heart same in antique store. I think that's my mum. It's my mum. The place you dreamed of going to when you were a kid.
I don't. My dad went to the UK when I was in 5th grade, and I just thought that was the coolest thing. I even won like a website competition, making a website about the UK. So I did I did always want to go to England, and that's because that's like where my dad went for when he left the country for the first time. So it's kind of cool that I get to do that.
Amazing. And I've got to ask you, are you planning to come back? Are you coming to the UK soon?
Yes, and I hope you'll have your listeners come to my shows because I really need those ticket sales to move. But we haven't announced when. We're still trying to figure that out. But I definitely will be back in the UK by the end of the year.
Okay, amazing. We'll let everyone know. 2 more. The most memorable place you performed?
Well, I mean, obviously the Ryman in Nashville is the Mother Church. And I got to open we were just talking about the late Leslie Jordan. I got to open for him at his show there. And it was really, really, really special. I got a standing ovation, and my whole family was there. There is magic in that room. And I was thinking about the whole time I was on that stage is that room was built in like the 1800s at some point. And I was thinking, this is a night with Leslie Jordan headlining, a queer opener. This room was not built for people like us, and here we are. And it just felt really, really impactful. And yeah, it's a night I'll never forget.
Do you fancy that? That is a perfect way to end it, because that is a beautiful image. I want people to Google the Ryman and just imagine you two on stage there. And that is just a perfect way to end this episode of Country Roads. Honestly, thank you so much again. And I hope to see you in Nashville or over in the UK at some time.
Yes, of course. Please, please, please. I would love to see you again. And thank you for having me.
I mean, Fancy's story, where do you start? I mean, I found it so inspiring that just the way that he's managed to find his way back to music, back to country music, the music he always wanted to make. But it's hard, I personally, just to not feel frustrated and angry that Fancy had to go through a journey like that. I feel like he's in a good place right now, though. But I think he's a wonderful reminder that if you don't feel like there's a place for you at the party, throw your own party. That's exactly what Fancy is doing, and he's just creating so much joy in the process. I'm so grateful to him for being so open about his story. If you want to hear more about his UK and European dates that are upcoming, and also just follow him, he's so much fun. You can look at his quirky collections, obviously hear his brilliant music. Just go to @Fancy Hagood on socials. Hagood is spelled Hagood, and also you can find out info about his show on Apple Music as well. Make sure you follow and subscribe to our channel as well. We are @Country Roads Pod, also on socials. Love to know what you think about the episodes and the guests that we have on the show. I've loved this series so far. I think the guests have told some incredible stories. This podcast is produced by Emma Roberts for Spiritland Creative and presented by me, Ben Earl. And we're back next week with a really exciting rising star in country music. So hope you can join me then.